Hello and welcome to another episode of Langrisser. In this video, we are going to talk about tanks. Now, there's this very common layout where MMORPG players always like to go for, which is there is a tank, there's a healer, and also there are damage dealers. The reason why they go like this is because the tank is very efficient and also effective in taking damage. The healer just makes sure that the tank doesn't die, and also the overall health of the team. They might also have buffs to make their damage go higher or the damage received lower. And then finally we have the damage dealers, which is very good at dealing damage, so they can eventually kill off the enemy. Now, this setup is not always ideal. Sometimes some people also like rocking like a very offensive setup. The reason or the idea behind it is that if you could do enough damage and kill off the enemy fast, you actually don't need to take in that much damage over time as well. So they both kind of work, and there are other ways of playing, but we are going to look at the most common and the most classic layouts there is, which is the tank, healer, and damage dealer. Since we don't have a lot of time, we are only going to talk about tank. Now, I couldn't go through all the specifics because this is actually the second time that I'm doing this recording, and the first time when I go really detailed, I find that I just took up too much time. So I'm going to just go through really quickly on what is the good tanks, and why certain tanks fall off at late game. And so this will hopefully help you decide on what kind of tank you want to pick. And yeah, so we're going to talk about their uniqueness instead of just saying every single detail about each tank. Another thing that you need to know is that I am playing this game as a challenge as well, so I'm actually using mainly rares. Sorry about that, that's my phone. We are playing this game with mainly rares, and this means that we don't have characters like Leiden. We don't have Vargas as well. So all the characters that I have is either from events like Cherry, or given to you, like Lance is actually given to you as a starter, one of the starter flyers, and these are also from events. So I could only showcase you Grenier, Aaron, and also Freya for tanks here. So the rest I'm going to show you on the wiki page, but do take note that the wiki is not very accurate at the moment. There is very messy stuff. I see abilities that is not there, that's supposed to be there, and also some of the description may be also a little bit flawed. So so we're gonna just go through really quickly just so that you have a rough understanding so they can make your character. Let's start right now. Grenier is the starter tank that you have. This is the tank that's given to you. You don't actually need to get him in any way. Now he comes with his beginner ability, which is this one, which is called Guard, and when you activate it, it will protect people in 2 blocks around you. The problem is if you're not activating it, it will not protect anyone. So the better tanking ability is the Lance Phalanx, which has a passive that even if you're not using the ability, it will protect allies 1 square next to you. If you do use it, it will protect allies 2 squares around you, and it also increases your defense by 20%. And it also has the ability to do barb, which is a fixed damage towards the enemy. Now all these things are really good, and this one as well, it gives you more defense, but as you can see, it's when attacking, so it's not really a tanking kind of ability. It's more like a little bit more offensive. He has other defensive ability as well, like his last one, but we're not going to talk about that. Now he also has this Dream of Light, which is a faction buff, or in this case they call it a fusion power, and it also provides attack and defense. Now the problem here is that his defense increase with the faction buff does not stack with a healer's defense buff, and it also does not stack with the Lance Phalanx defense increase. So all these does not work together, which means if you have one, you don't really need the other, or the other becomes less effective because this aspect of it is not used. So therefore, by using this one, I actually lose out in this part of the defense because technically I don't need it. So I'm not using the full potential of this ability, if that makes sense to you. Now, the other thing that makes him really tanky is his talent, which basically in this case, the more stars you have, the talent actually changes a little bit. So at 6 stars, he actually has a 100% chance of increasing his attack and defense by 10%, and when attacked after battle. And it lasts for 2 turns, can be stacked up to 2 times. And this kind of makes him really tanky after 2 hits. So if he gets hit like twice, and then the third hit, he is going to be like extremely tanky, and he also has really good damage. Now, speaking of damage, he is also really good with damage. The reason why is because when you pump his defense, you will increase the barb damage, which is over here. It will also increase your overall damage if you were to use power stab, because power stab actually replaces your current attack with the defense times 1.6. This means that if you were to pump Grenier with a lot of attacks, it's not going to help much, because the moment you use power stab, all that damage or that attack is going to go away, and it's just going to look at your defense times 1.6. Now, I've tried playing him as an offensive player, so I know this firsthand. And in other words, by playing him very defensively, you can also increase his attack dramatically after you use power stab. Now, however, I'm not actually playing him defensively. I am playing him very offensively, and the only ability that you can have with him as an offensive player is this one, which is called Assault, and it does 1.6 damage. But we are talking about tanks, so let's move on, otherwise it's gonna take a really long time. The next one we're gonna talk about is actually Freya and not Aaron. Aaron is my current tank, but Freya is another very popular tank. The way why she's so popular is that her tanking ability will also allow her to do damage to other enemies. Now, I've talked about her before in another video where I explain how you can get her, and I also showcased the fight or the last fight, the level 31, that people struggle in to get her. So I'm not gonna go through her that detail. If you want to know more, I'll put a card or something so that you can click and see that video instead. But long story short, she is just really tanky, but at the same time she gets to be very offensive when enemies are attacking her because of all the fixed damage that she can apply back to the enemy. Also with the Princess Alliance buff, faction buff, there are some that can actually allow her to do damage after battle as well. So it's just overall a lot of damage there. However, she does fall off as a great tank at the end. The next one I'm going to talk about is actually a better tank in the SR list. So this is going to be Vargas. The reason why Vargas is so strong is because, first of all, there's no way you can one-hit this character. You cannot one-tap this character because his passive includes a revival. So if he were to die the first time, he's going to revive with, at 6 stars, he's going to revive with a 30% HP. And he also reduces physical damage taken by 30% at most. Now, this is a little bit hard to explain. Let's see. So if the troops HP decrease physically, okay, so the troops HP will determine how much damage reduction he gets. So if it's a full health troops, I believe you get 30%, and then as the troops HP drops, you get less and less physical defense damage taken reduction, if that makes sense. So how does this work, in my opinion, and why I think it's not really that good is because as he gets weaker, he gets even weaker. Okay, so if you think about that, but then at the end, you know, if he really dies off, then he gets a revival, so he cannot be one tap, and the chances of even killing him in one hit is really low because of this 30% damage reduction. So that is what makes him really, really strong. And if you have a really good healer and you can keep him at 100 all the time, this is perfect. The next few things that he has that's really good is this one, the Iron Guard. Now, the reason why Iron Guard is really good Iron Guard is a little bit like the Lance Phalanx thingy, where when you use this actively, it will cover a 2 block radius, where if your ally is inside, he will take damage instead of your ally. But instead of having your what do you call having your, what is this statement? So instead of having your defense increase, it actually reduces critical. So I believe the wiki is incorrect here. So I'm going to show you my Aaron, because Aaron also have that ability. So over here. Okay, there you go. So the chance of being critically hit reduced by 20%. And also it grants a buff, which is power stab, which is the same power stab that we talked about with Grenier. So Aaron, or rather Vargas, he has this ability that will change his defense to attack, and also he can reduce the critical hit by 20%. So right from here you can see that by using him, and if you have a faction buff, the whole thing stacks. So that is why Vargas is really good as well. His tanking ability works very well with other faction buffs. His tanking ability works very well. If you don't have faction buffs, it will work with a support, shield. So that makes him really tanky. He does have this power step as well. And also he has other smaller tanking abilities that also makes him really tanky. So all in all, he is a very good defender. And because of power stab, he is also pretty good at dealing damage while defending as well. So I feel like his uniqueness and a lot of the tank's uniqueness comes from the talent itself. And Leiden, his talent actually decreases damage taken by 15%. And this doesn't matter if it's a melee attack, if it's a magic attack, if it's a range attack. So everything gets reduced by 15%. So although you might think that this value is lower than what Vargas has, which is like 30%, but this one is very generalized. It works on magic, it works on range, and it works on everything else. So therefore he is also really good in that sense. Now this character is a SSR, just keep that in mind. So it's going to be really hard to get. It's also going to be really hard to rank up to this point. When attack with melee attack with heroes HP above 50%, attacks 2 times, so he gets kind of offensive as well. Now if you come down here, you'll see the skills that he has. Okay, so Divine Guard is also a very good ability. It allows you to protect people around you 2 blocks away, and on top of that, I'm sure there is. On top of that, it also reduces critical instead of giving you defense. So it stacks well with the faction buffs. It also stacks well with if you don't have faction buffs, you have, let's say, shields instead. So it works well with that as well. Now it replaces magic defense and defense times 1. Now this is a little bit different, but technically it's the same as power stab, but this time you have magic defense in the mix, and it's times 1 instead of 1.6. But this is pretty okay, because since you have magic defense in the mix, the overall becomes bigger. So therefore it's also very I would say offensive as well. The cool thing about him, I would say, is that he could, there you go, this one takes all attacks instead of nearby friendly unit. So far, every single tank that we have talked about, they could only take physical damage instead of your ally. So any physical damage that attacks your ally, you are going to replace that, and you're gonna absorb that damage. But for him, for Leiden, he also takes in magic damage, takes all sorts of damage instead of your friendly unit, which makes him a very unique tank and a very powerful tank in certain situations. The next thing that I like to talk about that is really good is probably this one, Judgment. Attacks a single enemy, deal 1.2 damage. Before entering battle, defense and magic defense of this unit is increased by 30%. So this one is also separated from the faction buffs and also the normal shields. So therefore you can see there's a huge increment in defense and magic defense, making him one of the best tanks. But with that said, considering how hard is it to get him and also how hard is it to rank him up, it's debatable if you want to straightaway go for him. But yeah, end game, he is probably one of the best, alongside with a lot of people would say Vargas. But to me, I feel like Leiden and Aaron is probably one of the best. The reason why Aaron is because if you were to take a look at his passive, his talent, damage taken decreased by 40%. So it's already more, potentially more damage reduced, more than Vargas. So Aaron has that. The next thing is that the way his ability works is that the lower his health, the more the damage reduction is. Whereas Vargas is the higher your troop's health, the higher the lower his physical damage taken is. So it's very good at not getting one tap, but Aaron is really good at sustaining multiple damage and still surviving, if that makes sense. So in that particular way of thinking, Aaron is actually a better physical damage tank than Vargas. But if you want to talk about magic, when magic is coming to play, there's no one else that can actually tank magic, not that I know of at least, not among the famous ones. It's Leiden. Leiden is the one that can actually take magic defense to use as well. Another thing about Leiden is that he is an SSR, so therefore his stats is a lot higher than Aaron and Vargas, all the SRs and rares. So therefore, with higher stats, you're gonna get a overall, remember the thing about EHP, so it's gonna get a larger EHP, and that is gonna make him way better. So that is why a lot of people will neglect a rare, but in my opinion, Aaron is actually a really good tank. So even though I don't get Vargas, even though I don't get Leiden, Aaron, to me, he is good enough, and I've been using him for a really long time. He also has the Unbreakable Guardian, which does all the things that we mentioned. And in later games, he has this one, Reinforcement. Oopsie, I always click on it. Let's see if there's, there you go. So after every action, it heals 20% of your health. Now this is, to me, a big deal because 20% is actually a lot. So imagine if you lost your healer, he can still survive and he can still keep fighting with this ability. You can even pull back a little bit, you know, take one damage at a time, and if that damage is below 20% of your health, you are guaranteed to win that match, unless, you know, you run out of time. So the problem with being offensive with a tank is that by the time you kill the enemy, you might run out of rounds. So that is the only issues that I have. But long story short, he is very tanky. See, when attack defend increased by 5%, last one turn can be stacked as much as you want. So he has also power stab, but I don't use it. He is one of the few characters that also has bash, which stuns enemies for one turn. So there are a few other characters, some magician types, that can kind of disable enemies for one turn. Now he has this ability, and what happens is that it happens before entering a battle. What this means is that, let's say there is, so he's a Lancer, so he's weak against infantry, right? So if you were to attack an infantry, you're gonna get a lot more damage than what you're gonna do to him. So by using bash that happens before the battle, so you bash the enemy, then you get stunned, and then you get free hits. You can attack him without him damaging you. And this is not just applying to you. If you use Aaron first, all your other melee can attack that particular character, the enemy that is stunned, for free without taking any damage. And this is something that I feel very useful for a rare to have. So this is also one thing why Aaron, in my opinion, one of the greatest. Now I actually use the enhancements for forgot what's it called. Oh yeah, it's called Hard Rock, which basically when you take damage and your health is below 50%, it has a chance to heal 15% of your health, of your total health. So by having that and him, and later in the future we'll see, maybe we will exchange one of these with this. We'll just play it around and see what works best. Or if you want to go on full on tank, we can also remove the shield bash instead and put in reinforcement. And he will actually be able to hover around that particular level, around 40%, 50%. And by doing that, he is actually so much tankier than Vargas could be. The only problem is stats. So when you look at end game, you look at stats, overall stats, when they finally reach all level 60 with all the end game gears, since Aaron is a rare, his stat is gonna lag behind Vargas and also Leiden. So in that sense, he is bad. But if you look at skill wise, look at the numbers and everything, if they are rocking the same stats, Aaron is definitely one of the strongest in my opinion. Okay, so let's make a quick summary. Grenier is a beginner tank and he's good at taking damage after he takes a few damage before. Freya is okay tank, but most of her abilities revolve in dealing damage, fixed damage back to the opponent, and this means that she can actually do a pretty good damage output without having to pump a lot of attack as well. So this makes her a very quick, fast pace character to have. You can actually end a mission a lot faster with her as your tank, but at late games she does kind of sort of lack the abilities to stay alive. And both Grenier and Freya is very easily to be one tap at higher levels. Vargas over here cannot be killed in one hit. So even if you do manage to remove all of his health in one hit, he will revive with more health. And sometimes that one revival is going to mean a lot, because that extra round can actually turn the table on a lot of things. And even with a low health revival, you can have your support to heal him into full health, and you can really just make things last a lot longer and give you more hope. He is a very good tank and I would rate him endgame, and that is why. Leiden here is very rounded. He has good magic defense and also good defense. His stats is good because he's an SSR, and above all, his uniqueness is that his buff allow him to do high damage towards the enemy and also being able to tank magic damage. Now because he is so well rounded, he is also one of the best tanks in late game. And finally we have Aaron. Now Aaron works a little bit different from Vargas. Although he do not have revival, he gets really tanky as his health decreases. However, he is a rare and therefore his stats will lag in the end games. However, I will rank him as an end game physical damage tank as well. Okay, with that we are going to go summoning, and then finally we're gonna end the video. So I've been waiting for this. Nothing new here. This one I actually already have. I broke down a lot of them. So let's go for the next one. Yep, we have all this before. Here we go again. Come on. SSRs are really good for their what do you call, the unique abilities, the skill side of things. Oh, we got it. We got an SSR. Nice. I wonder where it is. And there are a lot of SSRs out there. They say that, I've never really compared, but they say that the rank difference, like an SSR is actually basically 10 levels of a SR. An SR is 10 level of a rare. The other thing that makes an SSR better is really just the skills, and the skills are what I'm pretty much after right now. So attack and HP, we're gonna take a look at that real quick, and then we're gonna end this video. Oh wait, before that, there's one more thing that I like to do. So since we're not really using this for, to be honest, the honor points, there's not much use of them besides purchasing these things. And we're not going to get Trinity Vultures because we're not really summoning or getting characters. We're just using whatever we get through campaigns to summon for equipment. So we're going to use this for this. This runestone is going to take another 17 days. By then we should have enough. So let's see what we get from here as well. A guarantee SR and SSR. And we got this one, HP defense. Sounds pretty nice. Okay, with that, let's go and take a look at the weapon. It's a 1? No, it's not. Used by... Oh, it's a sword. Okay, attack and defense. Nothing too special. Attack 2% though, pretty good. When attack with range attack, defense and melee defense increased by 2%. This is really good for my defender. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a better understanding of the tanks in this game, and also why certain tanks kind of fall off at certain levels at end game. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Hi, thank you for watching till the end. I hope that you will consider subscribing to help the growth of this channel. Like and comment down below to let me know if you like to see more of this particular content. And finally, click the bell icon so that you will not miss any of my new upcoming videos. I wish you a pleasant day. Bye bye.